Let's move on to some news items tonight, and we should start off the top with Patrick Clark, Velveteen Dream, who issued a very lengthy statement on his Instagram story. This was early Monday. And I'm not going to go through the whole thing because it's very, very lengthy. But the key points, number one, is he denies the allegations that were made about him last year. He stated that, his goal was to provide, this was his explanation for not addressing the allegations sooner. He said that his goal was to provide you with the same escape that I was offered when I first started watching, that being wrestling. My job was to play a character and to help advance storylines and drama for the fans who cared to tune in. I take any job I have seriously, which is why I've remained silent about these allegations. To me, addressing rumors would be working against an already compromised ability to sell a character I've invested in so heavily. I'm going to stop there. Number one, that's just, to me, I do not understand that rationale at any point. There is a point where the wrestling ends. This is your real life. This is your reputation. Instead of, harming a fictional character on screen, this is stuff that is attacking your real life character. So I cannot really understand. Like, I get there is a mentality in pro wrestling. This, to me, if that was your full reason for not addressing this, when you believe that you have not committed any infraction, that these allegations are not true, I just cannot imagine that you're not screaming at the top of your lungs your defense.
Yes, I agree with you. I think there are moments, especially in 2021, where I feel like the audience would be able to fully accept somebody breaking kayfabe. And this, when you're facing allegations and you're facing, at least what was presented online to the public as evidence, I feel like that would be the time to break kayfabe. It would be another thing, I think, if the company were to tell him to not address it. But I mean, we've seen Matt Riddle directly confront his accusations. So I don't know if it would be like that. And I mean, he didn't say so. So
he did not indicate that. He made it clear that it was his choice not to address this. And when the first allegation was made, he did put out that very brief tweet denying it and stating that a third party was looking into it. Now, he does address the allegations. The first person that had made the allegations was an individual by the name of Jacob that he said he corresponded with through a direct message on Instagram, who said was a 17-year-old aspiring wrestler. And this person asked Patrick Clark for verification that it was really him and ended up sending him a voice message and then asking him about his height, weight, where he trained, the school he attended. And then the next day he said he saw screenshots of a conversation he did not have. And once seeing this, contacted WWE and noted that a personal photo of his was shared and without his knowledge or consent. And this was when he did address it and put out that tweet back in April of last year. The other allegation was of grooming, which was made by Josh Fuller, who allegedly was 16 when they met and was another aspiring wrestler, and said Patrick Clark did acknowledge that he knew of him from Maryland. He wasn't someone new. He had just met like this person, Jacob, and indicated that this guy, Josh Fuller, was trying to become a wrestler, ended up suffering a concussion, and Clark essentially broke contact with him because he was encouraging him to take a break from wrestling, to heal from his concussion, and cut communication off, and believes that, that is the source of Fuller's anger with him. So he adds at the end here, Josh and Jacob are two of many people that I've helped. Yet these are the only two who have found me to be malicious and predatory in how I go about helping others. What wasn't shared at the time, Josh Fuller reached out to Jacob over social media before Josh put out his own accusation. When this came out, Josh Fuller temporarily deleted his Twitter account, which is important because in all the social media confusion, Josh Fuller is the only one who suggested that an investigation had not been done and that had not been contacted. This in relation to when Paul Levesque had stated they had looked into things and investigated these allegations, and then Josh Fuller had stated he was never contacted. Patrick Clark goes on to say that Jacob deleted his social media after he was outed for being a member of an anti-black group chat. He then goes on to say, all in all, this entire experience defamed my character and ultimately accomplished what it sought out to do, and that was to see me released. So Patrick Clark is definitely of the belief this is all what led to his release. My hope is that over time, people can put two and two together and realize that all the allegations surrounding me were baseless and untrue from the jump. I felt strongly about not needing to defend myself on social media for a while now, but I understand the audience I work for, and those who know me deserve clarity. I'm thankful for the opportunities afforded to me and the memories I have as a receipt. So that's a portion of a very lengthy statement. Those are kind of the keynotes, takeaways that I took from this. I definitely have a lot of questions about this, and this becomes sort of your area where it's going to be different stories, and you're kind of left to kind of decipher, and it becomes very difficult to do. I'll say, though, that we know that, through Paul Levesque's own words, that they said they looked into things and they found nothing there. If all of this is what Patrick Clark had presented to WWE, why was he released? Why this long gap from last summer to now? Why is the release occurring now? These are all questions you have that I think are only going to be brought up. If there was certainly, if the company did not stand by him, he would have been gone last year and not now. So I don't know what you really take from this statement, and where it's a larger issue about all of these stories is how are they to be adjudicated? It's essentially these companies are left to be kind of the arbitrator, and the audience is kind of what they're going by. Who are we comfortable using or not using? These are not typically, we're not seeing law enforcement get involved. So it just becomes essentially these stories are just getting played out online, and you're left to draw your own conclusions when there's a lot of missing pieces that I don't think the public is equipped to, adjudicate these cases because there's too many questions.
Yeah. Again, every case is different, and this one certainly has become a little bit trickier. I will say, in regards to Velveteen Dream's statement, I feel like he said a lot, but I feel like there's still many unanswered questions that feel unsatisfied by what he said. There were 3 accusers and not just 2. There's this somebody by the name of Matt who also posted conversations with Velveteen Dream that didn't seem to be addressed unless he went by a different name. But of course, these things can be doctored, and that seems to be what he's suggesting. There was an audio clip that I guess Velveteen alleges was cut up that I guess wasn't necessarily mentioned here in this explanation, but there are still some things that feel somewhat unsettled if you, in my opinion, have been following the entire thing. But as far as WWE's action goes, I feel they were probably a lot more willing to try everything they could to make sure that this guy was that they had to act based on whether or not there was any real concrete evidence. And I believe that they didn't really find any sort of concrete evidence that, would have made him, guilty or, just guilty of committing something illegal. Otherwise, I think he would just be gone. But at the same time, I feel this company would not have went through so much effort to retain him if they didn't think of the investment that they already had put into him throughout these years, if they didn't think about the potential that he had as an employee. If he was just a guy on 205 Live and he went through something like this, even if there were there was no concrete evidence, I don't think they would have given him this much rope. But it's at the point now where it's been a year. They tried the brief comeback and the audience wasn't taking it, and you also have a lot of rumors of other issues that might be attached to Patrick Clark beyond this that, might be behavioral, might be, some sort of, I don't know, social etiquette thing that might have rubbed coworkers the wrong way, that I suppose would also give them some basis to let somebody go. And again, how much reason do they really need to when somebody's, when it's time for that uh, time to just trim the roster. Other than, hey,
There's also the question way of if like if if this is the like Patrick Clark's defense, I mean, Paul Levesque like he shared none of this. And I think that only fanned the flames because it was a very inadequate response from Paul Levesque, who pretty much limited it to, we looked into it, there was nothing there. Like that's essentially was his response. You did not have explanations for any of this. You did not have anything to go on. And I think that only upset people further when it was, that doesn't pass the smell test.
Yeah, when something like this comes out, I think simply trying to sweep it under the rug only makes things worse. When something like this comes out, if they truly believe that the man is innocent, I feel full transparency, or as much as you can, offer to the public to, rid this person of this story, would be very helpful. And for whatever reason, they chose to essentially sweep it under the rug by not really mentioning it or going into detail, and not, unless prompted, and even when prompted, not getting into that much detail. And I think that probably affected a whole lot of the audience's opinion of seeing him back on TV. It's an interesting question of like, how do you gauge it, John? Like, that, do you think we can? Because earlier this week, I would have said, I don't think any indies will pick him up. I don't think any, wrestling promotion will pick him up. Do you see that being any different today?
I mean, I always look at, there will be some companies out there that are going to book someone off of WWE television. I think they just will. There will be those companies. If we're talking about prominent national companies, I'm not too optimistic that anyone is going to be jumping to use Patrick Clark. He put this out, but to your point, I still think that there's going to be those questions. And if you're a major company and you're weighing the benefits and the negatives, I mean, like, what kind of reaction is a Patrick Clark going to receive in front of a live wrestling audience?
Depends on that audience, Yeah, and I don't even, is it worth the risk? I suppose if you're a promoter at some point, we'll find out. But yeah, I'm actually quite curious to see what some of the feedback might be from the audience.